am the Indigenous focused ECE instructor with Louis Riel Vocational College. Today's video will be on Chapter 1 of Early Learning and Childcare Overview. Please ensure that you are reading Chapter 1 of your text. This video does not replace your daily chapter readings. Chapter 1 of Early Learning and Childcare Overview discusses ECE professionalism and what it means to be an early childhood educator professional. In Manitoba, an ECE is somebody who has knowledge of child development and will care for children from birth to age 12. In your textbook, it often will refer to standards that are more Americanized opposed to Canadian. And as this occurs, I will reiterate what our standards are here in Manitoba. We want to promote, as professionals, high quality childcare and professional standards. We always want to ensure that our staff are expanding their knowledge and their skills through workshops or courses. We want to ensure that our staff are developing relationships with family. We're not only caring for children, but we're caring for their families. And as children realize or recognize that staff have developed relationships with their parents, they're going to feel more comfortable and feel safe and secure. And with that, learning and growing will occur. Constant changes in our environments will result in us furthering our education or adapting our program to meet the diverse needs of the children that are coming into our program. We've had a lot of changes in the early childhood profession in the last 10 years. This has occurred because we have more knowledge now of young children than we ever have in the past. This is knowledge that we've discovered through interactions and observing children on a daily basis, opposed to the theories or the theorists that we often read about in past teachings. There is an emphasis on high quality childcare than ever before. Center directors, board of directors, parents are wanting to ensure that the people looking after their children are high quality and have knowledge and education of children as young as 3 months. We've had a lot of different funding occur in the past 10 years as well, through federal funding, provincial funding that has enhanced our daycare programs, as well as local funders that daycares can apply for grants and receive grants again to further enhance the program development. So again, in your text, the National Association of Education for Young Children has been referred to, or the acronym for that is the NAEYC. That association is very prominent for setting standards in the United States. And here in Canada, we have several organizations as well as in Manitoba. So off the top of my head, I can tell you that I'll refer more to the Canadian Childcare Federation, to the Manitoba Early Learning and Childcare Program, or Manitoba Childcare Association. So those are our support systems in Manitoba and Canada that set the tone for professionalism and professional development and help raise the standards of care. So going back to the National Association of Young Children, they do have 6 standards for professional preparation. These standards are similar to what you may see as far as Manitoba and Canada, and what maybe our curriculum framework is structured around. So the 6 standards are promoting child development and early learning, building family relationships and community relationships, observing, documenting, and assessing children and their families are important tools, as well as using developmentally appropriate practices, or DAP, which we'll talk a little bit more about in this chapter. Using content knowledge to build meaningful curriculum, and becoming a professional are the standards that have been set. So when I refer to professionalism and developmentally appropriate practices, we want to ensure that we are teaching children appropriately, that we are gauging activities and programs to their developmental age as opposed to their chronological ages. So we have to accept that each child is a unique individual, and each child learns and grows and develops at a different rate. And it's our job as professionals to observe and assess children throughout free play, and from there we can gauge where they may be developmentally and plan appropriately. So developmentally appropriate practice can mean how children learn, how children grow, how children develop. And ECEs are going to gear all their programming towards that. It's recommended through best practices that developmentally appropriate practices are used in the early learning and childcare profession. How do we teach the principles of developmentally appropriate practices? So we want to ensure that we're doing that within our environment, that our focus in an early learning and childcare environment, and again, that's going to be dependent on the age of the children. So if you're caring for a group of children in your program that are age 2 to 5, you're going to have a wide range of toys and materials and games that are geared to children age 2 and 5. A 2-year-old may developmentally be closer to 3, or a 3-year-old could be developmentally closer to the age of 2. And again, we have to accept that that's the rate of a child's development, and help them learn and grow and develop by providing those appropriate materials. We're going to plan activities that provide children opportunities for exploration that are hands-on. So the more that they can manipulate and feel and construct their own learning is going to be beneficial to their development. And we also want to encourage some deep thinking. So we want to ensure that what we're planning and implementing as professionals, that the children are benefiting from it. Are they asking questions? Are they making hypotheses? Are they experimenting? How are they benefiting from this activity? We want to ensure some thinking skills are coming out of that activity. And we also want to make sure that we're gearing everything to that appropriate learning style of that particular child, where they are developmentally. As again, each child is going to develop in their own unique way. So tools for teaching tolerance of young children is another focus when you're considering where we are professionally. And one of the biggest things about teaching tolerance and getting to know people that are different from you, a really important practice is getting to know yourself and getting to know your family and your culture. And so in this course, we put together a family tree, and we get to know about the culture of ourselves and about our classmates. And we get to learn about their families and understand a little bit about their families and where they're from and some of their traditions. And that helps us to see similarities in some of our cultures, as well as what the differences are. So that's really important. You have to know yourself before you can get to know other people, and you have to find some common ground and to develop those relationships. And so it's often easy to develop relationships if you have things in common. That's why we want to do those steps in creating that family tree. And developing those relationships, getting to know your students and getting to know your families. How can you connect with them? Is it finding words that are common, or if English is not their first language, or a child is coming to you and doesn't have any English language? Can we find certain words that we can communicate to them? The basics like water and food, or I'm tired, so that we are connecting and that they are hearing their language. That's going to make them feel a little bit more comfortable. We want to ensure that we're bringing things from their home that makes them feel comfortable. So if that's a picture of their family or a special blanket or toy that's comfortable, that helps them feel a little bit more safer in the environment. Until a child is safe and feels secure, they're not going to be at their best. And if they're not at their best, they're not going to take in what's happening in the environment. They won't learn and they won't grow. So again, going back to professionalism and culturally appropriate practices, we want to develop a culturally responsive practice. So we want to ensure that we're being sensitive to children and to their cultural backgrounds and what their needs are. We want to ensure that they're sleeping, that they're eating, that they understand how to use and how to manipulate the materials within that environment. We want to help them be successful in that environment, and how we do that is asking questions and being understanding and being accommodating to them. We also have to learn that children of different cultures have different needs, and that could be something as simple as food needs and what you're serving in your program. It could be things that they don't know how to eat or have never tried it before, and it's something different. So, you know, how can we accommodate that particular child or those families within our environment? Can we add things to our menu? Are there foods that are similar? And again, that makes them feel a little bit more comfortable, and they're more apt to participate in our environment. So when it comes to children's cultures, what are some ways that we can show respect for families and cultures that are different than their own? And you know, I pose that question to the students because it's really important. It's something to think about. We live in a country that is so diverse, and we live in a province that in the last few years have seen such an influx of new immigrant children into our programs. And we don't know their story. We don't know their background. We don't know things about cultures that may be disrespectful. You know, body language, being close proximity, pats on the back, things like that could be offensive to some cultures. So we really need to open up those lines of communication where we can and have those discussions and maybe research so we can find out as much as we can about the child and about their family. So ways we can demonstrate respect for children and their family. And I always say that the cool thing about working in childcare is that we not only care for the child, but we care for the family, and we don't always just see the children and their mom and dad. We get to know the parents, we get to know grandparents, we get to know aunts and uncles, and we get to know cousins. So there's a really strong family connection. And so, you know, it's really important to let families know your thoughts on participating in our programs. So daycare centers are always looking for families to volunteer for field trips or, you know, share some knowledge with us. Is there a special snack that you know how to cook? Is there something in your culture that you can share with us, like a story or a teaching? All that is going to be so beneficial to the child and all the children for that matter. But how special a child will feel if grandma comes in and does a cooking activity and teaches them something about the country and the culture that they're from. Teaching home language to the children in the class and to the other children. It's always really important that you encourage that. If you have two children that speak the same language, or staff that may speak a language, the same language as a child, it's really important that they understand that they can do that. And it's really cool how children can pick up different pieces of language and learn language. children at a young age have a far greater ability to learn multiple languages than we do as an adult. And again, that really sets the tone for children to feel safe and comfortable within the environment that, yeah, it's okay if I can do that. Provide the expectations to the family in any way or means that you can. There's so many different ways that you can communicate: by word of mouth, by bulletin board, by happygrams, by newsletters, by emails. So whatever forms of communication that you have, utilize them, because it's really important to keep those families connected. They need to feel comfortable, and they need to feel like they belong. On average, a child will spend up to 10 hours a day in a child care center with the early childhood educators and their peers. So that's, when you think about 5 days a week, that's 50 hours a week that a child will spend out of the home. So you almost become their next, their second family. So as many opportunities that you can to connect all parties, whether it's a barbecue or a family movie night, take advantages of those opportunities, because it's a really, really nice way to get to know the families in your environment. It's also nice to bridge daycare and home and share strategies if challenges are coming up, or you're having challenges rather with children. What can you do to make things consistent? ECE professionals will want to have those conversations with the parents. They'll want to ask the parents, do those things happen at home? And if they do, how do you handle it? And let's be consistent. Let's be on the same page. And because consistency is important to the child, and we really want to change that behavior from happening both at the center and at home. And different families also have different child rearing practices. So, we have our, in daycare centers, we have our policies and our procedures, and how we work with children as far as correcting behavior or disciplining, our behavior management policies. Families may have a very different view on how they deal with behaviors, and it's really important to know what families' practices are going in, just so that they're aware of what strategies you might use, and that they're okay with that type of behavior management. And that doesn't, I hope that doesn't sound harsh, because it's not. It's more, we'll discuss behavior management more in guidance. However, centers use a lot of positive guidance and redirection, are our forms of dealing with challenging behaviors. So everything is done in a very sensitive approach, in a way that doesn't make a child feel bad about themselves, because it's not that they're bad, it's just that the choice they made at that time wasn't a good choice. So ways that ECEs can become professionals, and when I say ECEs, here in Manitoba, there's different forms of early childhood educators. So we have childcare assistants, or CCAs is the acronym. A childcare assistant requires a 40-hour course in order to work in a childcare center. We have an ECE2. An ECE2 can be educated through Louis Riel Vocational College in their 2-year program, as well as Red River College or Assiniboine College. And to be a 3, you have to attend University of Winnipeg or University of Manitoba, the Developmental Studies program. An ECE2 can specialize. The stream for that now is through Assiniboine Community College, where you would specialize in management or perhaps inclusion. So that specialty will bring you up to the level of 3. And in your slide that you're seeing right now, there are some different forms of or paths that you can take to become a professional that works with children. These streams are more Americanized, and probably you wouldn't work in a childcare center, more in the teaching education profession than in a daycare center. So as we explore professionalism, ECEs are often taking on some different roles as professionals. So some of these teaching roles have changed over the last few years, and we've heard the term pedagogy, we've heard the term instructional leader. Those types of teaching styles, again, are going to depend on the dynamics of your children and the group of children that you work with. And that's really getting to know those children. It's getting to know their developmental level, their skills, and to take time to observe the children within your program and the materials that they're using. We want to ensure that whatever practice that we choose in terms of teaching children, that children are benefiting from those activities or from those materials that we're providing for them. And that's our main goal. We want to ensure that children are learning and growing and developing within our childcare programs. A new role that ECE professionals are taking on as well is a teacher of literacy and reading. And this is a huge component to success in the later years I should rather not the later years, but once children start the school process. Your education is dependent on your ability to read. So you need to read to be successful. How can we encourage literacy and reading in a daycare environment? Is just making it rich with pictures and posters and letters of the alphabet and numbers and books and music. All of that is going to enrich your program. And again, that helps children identify letters and numbers. Songs that are repetitive that have numbers, or even the alphabet is a school a readiness skill. How do we teach children the alphabet? We teach them by repetitive singing that particular song, and as they get older, we start to show them the letters of the alphabet, and they begin to identify the letters of the alphabet. So that is all part of literacy enriched environments. Lots of stories as well. So reading children's stories or felt stories are really great to develop literacy skills. We want to encourage that we have an inclusive classroom as well. So inclusive meaning it includes everybody, and again, that is culturally diverse. It is a developmental factor. You're including posters and pictures of family from different cultural backgrounds, people from different disabilities as well. And that's really important for children to be able to identify similarities and differences and understand that as a big part of the learning and growing process. So as an ECE professional and a teacher, what is your role going to be when it comes to teaching young children? You know, are you going to be a teacher? Are you going to be a coach? Are you going to be a mentor? Are you going to be a counselor? That's all the different hats you're going to wear when becoming an ECE professional. You are going to, and again, when I say caring for children, you're also caring for families. So you're going to have many discussions with families regarding many different things, from eating habits to behavioral habits to concerns about developmental capabilities. And so, you know, when you have those discussions, it's what you choose to do and what you say and how you incorporate your practices, again, should benefit the children that you're caring for. What is your role as an early childhood educator? So again, I always pose that question to the students, and the students will have had a classroom discussion about that. Think about what your role is and what you want to accomplish when you're working with children. You know, some of the things that you need to do on a daily basis are getting down to the level of the child, playing and interacting, having meaningful conversations, posing questions, challenging them, getting them to think. A big change in our field in the last few years has been spending more time outside, because we've realized that children learn so much from being in the outdoor environment and nature, digging in the mud, looking at the different birds. So much happens outside. Even construction on the front street in your daycare center sparks so many unique, interesting conversations for the children. And they learn something, and they're excited about something, and we need to go with that. A child is going to learn more if they're interested in a topic and are excited about it. And we need to provide them the materials regarding their interests that's going to further their learning and further their knowledge. Another role for us as early childhood professionals today is developing a philosophy, and you know, what is important to you as an ECE. And I always pose again the question to my students as, you know, what do you think about children? What do you think about children as learners and how they grow and they develop? Are you thinking it's a nature versus nurture? That there are some innate qualities and skills that we are born with, and that's how we develop? Or do you think that it's all development takes place within the materials and environment and how children construct their own learning? Or is it both? Is it stages of development? So there's a lot to think about when it comes to child development and that learning process, and what our philosophy is. So what do you believe about children? How they learn, how they grow. What should children know and learn? What should your curriculum be based on? My philosophy states that I will develop the whole child, and I'm going to do that through the 7 different curriculum areas. Some of those curriculum areas will be literacy, will be science and math, will be music, will be arts and crafts, social studies, construction. So incorporating all that into your environment develops, again, all 4 developmental domains, which again is the whole child. What's the best way to teach a child? Is that children learn through play? Going back to my philosophy, I believe that children learn through play. I believe that through daily interactions with the ECEs in their environment, with their peers, with the materials that are provided for them, they're going to construct their own learning. They're going to experiment. They're going to try new things and develop new skills just by doing that. So what is your philosophy regarding that? Do you believe children learn through play, or do you believe that children have to be taught in certain things at a certain time in a certain way? So these are all things that we're going to explore as we dive a little bit deeper into child development, and we discuss more of the theory parts of child development. So just reflecting on your philosophy, and this is something we are going to create a philosophy, a document in Early Learning and Childcare Overview. And I always say to the students that we will go back and we will revisit our philosophy at the end of term 1, the end of term 2, 3, and 4, because our knowledge is going to grow. We're going to be spending more time in childcare environments. We're going to be observing children and interacting with children. So maybe something that you believe now may change over time, and we will adjust that philosophy accordingly. So just a few I believe statements, because a philosophy is really composed of many I believe statements. So, You know, I believe children are unique individuals with the right to love, respect, and quality care is a line in my personal philosophy. I believe that that children learn through play, and that we should be providing opportunities for learning in all 7 curriculum areas. I believe that children should be provided a safe, nurturing environment. So these are, you know, a few examples of I believe statements that you could incorporate into your philosophy. I believe that children should spend, you know, at least 2 hours outside per day, weather permitting, of course. And I believe that children should have uninterrupted free play for a minimum of 2 hours per day. And that allows children the opportunity to really expand on what they're involved in at that time and really construct their own learning. So again, a philosophy is something an ECE professional should do, I think, throughout the course of their career. I believe that, you know, over the course of time, we'll tweak, we'll change, we'll add. There's always new and interesting changes in our field. And when that happens, or we learn something within a workshop, we might take that directly back to our philosophy and make those adjustments. Accommodating diverse learners. As ECE professionals, this is something that is huge within our field. And we continually have to change the ways we are doing things in order to accommodate different learning styles. And diverse learners, again, means many things. Diverse learners could be, it could be a disability, it could be a physical, it could be a mental disability, which might involve a change within your structure, within your environment. It could be just where children are progressing developmentally. And it could be diversity from different cultures. So there's many things that encompass diversity. But at the end of the day, what that means is that we need to be respectful to that diversity, and we need to ensure that we are programming appropriately for that child. So we want to create an environment where every child is successful and thrives. We want to embrace inclusion as a part of our philosophy. So when you're creating that philosophy, it should have a statement in there that I believe that all children should be included at all times. And it should also ensure that you are advocating for all the supports possible for that particular child, so that they are successful within that environment. And often parents aren't sure of what supports are available. But as ECE professionals, as you're working with children and you're being introduced to new disabilities, you're often introduced to a team of professionals that are there to support the child and work with the child to help them be successful in life. In the early learning and childcare field, our goal is to help a child be successful for kindergarten. So you're kind of setting that tone for education. So you meet many different people that help meet the needs of that child, and those become resources to you, and those resources you can often share with families. So that concludes our lesson for today. I do encourage you to see your instructor to ensure that you haven't missed any handouts for Chapter 1 of Early Learning and Childcare Overview, and also just to check in to ensure that you haven't missed an assignment that was handed out for this chapter.